Hey there, it's a review for my Castle Crusades campaign, session 46. We're back with the B team, so we had Durn, Eostremar, and Orvon. They had some NPCs with them. Swain, who's a human fighter, and Trotter, who's a halfling ranger, and Willem, who's a young human squire. He's got a level of fighter. But so they're we started right where we left off. They're in the troll cave. They've defeated the two-headed troll, and now they're trying to decide to do what. Oh, we had Pounder as well. Can't forget Pounder. I got to write that in my notes. Pounder was there, who's a half ogre barbarian. So they're in the troll cave. They've defeated the troll. They've explored around a little bit. They follow. They're interested in maybe camping here, but it turns out not to be the nicest place because a troll lived here, so it stinks of troll. And there is some running water in here. They trace that back to another passage. It's seeping in from the walls and it draining out of this cavern, and they follow it. And it goes down this tunnel that they can all fit in, even Pounder, who's a large in size. But it eventually drops off into a cavern, and they can't see the end of it. So they're like, well, we can't stay here. We got to get out of here. On the far side of the cavern, there's a door that they haven't explored yet. While they're doing all this, and Eostremar is, we kind of backtracked a little bit. He is casting Identify to identify the couple items that they got out of the troll's loot. And it was a belt and a set of boots. But Identify is a taxing spell, so like it will drain temporarily some of your constitution. So my friend Matt rolls, he gets 3 points of constitution drain. So he doesn't want to let on to the party that he's weak. So what he does instead is he drags out, he conceals basically. He can recover those points in about an hour. So he conceals the fact that the spell only takes a round to cast, and then proceeds to drag it out for like an hour, which some of the party is a little bit confused. They know, like through adventuring with Barry, although Barry doesn't typically use that Identify spell in the field. They're like, it just seems like he does things much quicker. So there was some joking about that table, but he was successful in hiding the fact that he was weak and dragged the spell out for an hour, the casting of it. But eventually it's identified. While that's going on, Swain is kind of looking around this lair, and he's digging around where there's a pile of bones, and he finds this old shield, and he cleans it off a little bit, and it bears the symbol of the kingdom of Asharn, which is to the south. And it's old shield. It's in rough shape, but it's still serviceable. And he gives it to Willem, who takes great pride in this because he's from the south. Orvon's from the south. Swain is actually from the south as well, which they determined. So he takes great pride in this, and he adds it to his list of duties of when he's taking care of Orvon's armor. He's also taking care of his shield. Eventually, they take care of their business, and they decide to leave this and go through the door that they have yet to explore what's beyond it. And they go out and they realize this is the exit, like they've made it, and they didn't realize how far they had come. And there was a comment, I don't remember who made it, but someone made it to Durn because he's a dwarf and he should be able to determine how far underground, where they're at and stuff. And there was a comment basically about, you're a dwarf, you didn't know this? We're there at the exit. So they leave, and they find themselves in this, the Troll Lands. They've now entered the Troll Lands, which consists of low grassy hills, boggy, and there's a blanket of fog that hangs over the place. And they can see a little bit through where they're at, because where they come out, they're a little bit elevated coming out on the west side of the mountain range. There are like pockets of like dark twisted trees. They don't have any like leaves or anything on them, but Yeah, they can see those patches. And Trotter tells them that this is a very active place. He's checking the ground for tracks, and there's a lot of activity. So they need to get out of here. Like, they probably shouldn't stick around. So they know they need to head west. So the Trotter leads them west, and it's rough going. There's a lot of brush and tight brambles and these brooks that, like, the vegetation goes right up to the bank, so it makes them really hard to cross. And Trotter's doing his best to actually lead them around that stuff, and it takes more time to cover more ground. But they eventually travel on for several hours, getting away from the entrance to the tunnels. They come to a clearing, and in the clearing they find these pools of bubbling mud, and it's warm, like, to the touch, which is interesting. And they figure that there must be some sort of geothermal activity here, but there's all these bubbling pools of mud. And they decide to make camp here, which was good for them. And Eostremar casts a spell. I don't know the name of the spell. Basically casts a bubble over them that people couldn't see into. They could kind of see the bubble, but it gave them shelter for the night. So they camped there. And when they had established this camp, they set up watches still and stuff. But probably my favorite part, it was my favorite part of the session, was this encounter, this scene here, because they started going back and forth in character and talking about their backstories, because they're asking Eostremar more about him, because they're still puzzled by him, because none of them have can recall seeing an elf except for Durn. Now Durn is he's a dwarf, and the little bit of backstory with him is Durn has a 4 intelligence. But the thing we came up with, my son and I, who plays Durn, is that Durn wasn't always this way. He was injured, and it reduced his intelligence. And so when they're talking about this, one of the things is Durn is 220 years old, but he doesn't really remember anything beyond maybe the last 20 years. And he has, when they're talking about not ever meeting elves before, my son actually asked me, he goes, "Have I ever met an elf before?" And I was like, off the cuff, I was like, "You have a vague recollection of meeting an elf, but you can't quite place the face or a name or anything, but you remember somewhere in your clouded memories you've met an elf." So that added a little bit to it, and we'll see if something happens with that down the road, maybe. Orvon, who is half-elven, never knew his mother and was raised by his father. And he tells the story, and who's played by my friend Chris, he tells the story of how his father fell in love with this elven maiden. But what he's learned from both his father and his mentor, Lord Dalen, who's Lord Dalen at the time, was his father's squire, and then ended up becoming his mentor once his father passed, was killed in battle. That it was obviously a relationship that could not happen. The elves would not allow it. And if she had kept her son, life would not have been very good for him, being of mixed blood in elven land. So he was given to his father to care for, and then, according to what he was told by Lord Dalen, his father and his mother never saw each other ever again. And he knows her name to be Astrid, which is a name that my friend Chris came up with as he's role-playing this out with everybody, which was great. And I'm not going to go into it here because the guys watch these videos, but while they're doing this, I'm like writing my notes, and I'm writing notes because they're inspiring me, like stuff that's coming out of game that I'd never thought of or hadn't considered. So I'm writing stuff down. So I'm, for possible later use, which is, I love that stuff. So it was great. They end up breaking camp. In the morning, I roll a couple random encounters. They don't get any, so they have a restful night's sleep. And then they head out early in the morning, and they continue west. Eventually, they come to where the trail that left the tunnels, they're coming across it, like it's crossing their path again. And Trotter's been out ranging ahead, And he comes back and says, we need to just set up, I want to set up on this road for a little bit and just watch before we cross it or do anything like that. So they set up and wait, and he hides them the best he can. And, you know, they wait for a while. And today, on this day, it's actually it's raining. There's a storm, a little bit of storm. Not crazy, but a little bit of a storm. This excites my son, who's been wanting to cast, like, Call Lightning with his druid forever. So he's all excited that he might be able to get a chance to use this spell. So, sure enough, eventually they see they hear, coming around the bend in this trail, 3 trolls. And they are... the last troll in line has attached to a rope. He has prisoners, and there's 2 dwarves and 3 humans, and they look in really rough shape. And they're headed kind of the same direction they're going, west along the road or trail. So they decide, hey, obviously we can't let this happen. We're going to ambush these guys. So my son, playing Durn the Dirty, he leads this ambush off. He stands up, which is quite the sight because he's a dwarf, he's a druid. He wears like this big deer antler headdress thing, and it's got weeds and stuff hanging off it from all their time beating the brush. And he stands up and he casts Call Lightning. I think that's the spell he used. And he hits the first 2 trolls with Call Lightning. And after that, the battle ensues. I want to say it was a really good fight. It was a really good fight for the players and their characters. It was a really bad fight for me, the Castle Keeper, because I had 3. I was using River Trolls from the Monsters and Treasure book. So they're 9-hit dice creatures. I had 3 of them, and I did not score a single hit in the entire battle, which disappoints me greatly. So they eventually, most of the party closes, like Trotter and Eostremar stand back. There was an interesting scene where they dropped so the troll that's got the rope, he stays on the trail trying to control the prisoners. The lightning kind of made him all like blow back and get knocked down. And at that point, he actually lost grip of the rope, and he ends up getting it back, but he's battling. He's playing tug of war with the prisoners. The party, everybody else rushes in. Eostremar and Trotter hang back with magic and missile fire, and Willem hangs back. They end up dropping the other 2 trolls that got hit by the lightning. They charge the party, and they're eventually dropped. I actually rolled really well for Trotter. Like, he was doing a number with his bow, and they dropped these 2 trolls eventually. And then they charge past those. The ones that were in melee charge past those, and to get to the 3rd one before he does anything to the prisoners. There was some fear that they told me later that they were either afraid that he was going to kill it was going to kill the prisoners. So they send Willem in because they fought trolls before. He's like, hey, they send Willem in, hey, go burn the trolls. So Willem's all excited. Like, he wants to be a knight. He's not cowardly. We joke that he is the 2nd smartest person in the party now that Eostremar is there. But he wants to be a knight. Like, he wants to fight and do stuff. So he, with his new to him shield raised high, he lights a torch and runs in. And as he runs in to the trolls that had been dropped, they start to get up. And everybody's like, oh, crap, that's not good, because they know Willem, above board on the table, is not, like, he's a 1st level fighter. Like, he's a squire. So they're like, that's not good. And but Eostremar takes care of it. He throws down a couple magic missiles, splits them up, and it was their first round of regenerating, so they didn't have a lot of hit points. And he does enough with both of them to drop them again, and Willem dispatches them. And ultimately, they end up finishing off the 3rd troll. Again, like I said, I did not score a single hit in the entire combat. I'm still not happy about that, but it's the way the dice roll, I guess. So they free the prisoners, and the 2 dwarves, they talk to them, and they find out that they're from the mining town, and that the trolls have been hitting the patrols. They haven't actually hit the mining town itself, but they've been hitting patrols from the mining town. They're in rough shape. The party takes care of them the best they can. They salvage some equipment. The trolls had most of them had big spears, which the only one that can use those weapons is Pounder, because he's a large creature like the trolls. So he actually collects about 4 of those spears to use for himself. And then they end up breaking off the blades with a little bit of the shaft to hand out, with the remaining spears, to hand out to the prisoners to give them, because they're going to return to the mining town. They offer to, the party offers to bring them with them, but they're like, we're not going back that way. So they tell them that they're on a quest. So the miners from the mining town, they have no interest in going on this quest. So they take whatever equipment that they can get. I think Orvon gave one of them a dagger that didn't get a spear, and they're like, we can get back. It's not a hard trail to follow. We just need to get out of here. So they end up leaving. And that was about where the session, that was where we, oh, no, that before we ended the session, the party moves on. And there was some talk about like putting the heads of the trolls on pikes and stuff and leaving them as a message, but they choose not to do that. But they don't do anything with the bodies either other than burn them. So they travel for a couple hours, and at one point Trotter had fallen back behind the party to kind of cover their tracks a little bit. And he's gone for a while, and then he comes back in a hurry, and he tells the party that we're being pursued. He goes, I've tried to cover our tracks the best I can, but there is a troll hunting party, and they are trying to find us. They've found the ones we killed, and they're looking for us. And Trotter tells them that their numbers are greater than what we just faced. So they're like, we need to get out of here. But they're also like, they're going to catch us eventually, but they decide that, hey, we need to make distance, as much distance we possibly can. This is not a great place to make a stand where they're at. There was no cover. There was really nothing. They're just in like open, swampy grassland. So they're trying to, I think what they're going to try to do is make their way to some sort of place where they can make a stand. But we'll pick that up at the next session that we have with the B team, because that's where we ended the session. Overall, other than my horrendous dice rolling, it was a good session. I had fun. Like I said, my favorite part was the role-playing stuff that the guys did. The combat was fun. I mean, there was some fun moments in it. I was just wished I could have done more with it to give them a little bit more of a challenge. But I really liked the role-playing stuff that came out and talking about. And it was interesting, too, because there was stuff that I hadn't considered when they were talking about, like, Orvon being half-blooded. He's half-elven. And Eostremar was kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a snooty to him because of his mixed blood. And I don't think he's doing it like to intentionally be that way, but he's just like asking like these really direct questions about his heritage and stuff like that, and being mistreated by like the knights. And he's like, he was never mistreated by the knights. Like his father was very well regarded by the knights. And when his father was killed in battle, Lord Dalen took over his mentorship, but like the whole knighthood kind of took over his mentorship too, because his father was very well regarded. So he was raised in the knighthood. So he doesn't have like, oh, I had a horrible childhood and memories. I mean, he lost his dad young and never knew his mom, but like the people that took care of him did take care of him. So that was very interesting. And then it even brought in things with Pounder even perked up a little bit. My friend Steve, who plays Pounder, because Pounder's a half ogre. So he's got mixed blood. And I hadn't considered that, like when they started doing it. And then he was like, oh, you know. And Pounder, a lot of people misjudge him because he's a half ogre. And, but he's actually fairly intelligent. He's not a genius, but he's not stupid either. He's intelligent. So he, you know, picked up on these things and was just listening, you know, and not chiming in too much. But he was paying attention to it. So it was good. Yeah, so that was the end of the session. We will pick up next time, next week or a couple weeks from now, depends. The main campaign is going to play this Saturday. This is Friday, so tomorrow we'll play again, which is good. We'll be with the other crew. So yeah, that's the session. We didn't have any terrain. I had terrain, but underneath the black sheet here, but we never really got to that encounter, so which was fine. I don't care. One of the things the guys did mention. Oh, I'll bring these up too, actually, real quick. Because I painted up a bunch of these trolls, and I have more of them, but this is just a sample of one of them. This is a guy, I got this off Etsy, and I've put them, I think I have some video or pictures of them on my channel. Maybe I don't. I probably don't, because I was waiting for this, so I'll put some stuff up. But yeah, I painted up a bunch of these guys, and the guy's like, "Oh, it's too bad we don't have a board for this. You know, to get all those trolls you painted." Because I showed them to him to give the guys a reference on what the trolls actually look like. But next time, I'm sure we will. But yeah, I had terrain here, but we didn't get to that encounter, so no big deal. I'm not married to it, so if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So I'll let the game go where it goes. But yeah, so that's it. Sorry for the little bit of a ramble there at the end, but I'll any questions, comments, or anything like that, love to see them, and appreciate everybody watching, and catch you at the next one.